If you are a woman that has changed your name from your birth certificate, let's say through marriage, and you took your husband's name, you are no longer eligible to vote if this bill passes the Senate. It's already passed the House. So wake up.
I am sure you have seen the SAVE Act come up on your TikTok feed, your Instagram feed, your Twitter feed, your YouTube feed, anywhere. I'm sure you have already seen people like this person right here discussing the SAVE Act. It's horrifying. It was introduced last year in an effort to keep illegal immigrants from voting in our elections, which they can't, because you can't vote unless you're a citizen of the United States. It's already illegal. You can't do that. But it was introduced to prevent that from happening, to further safeguard our elections. And what it really does is, one, it requires you to register in person. So if you're elderly, if you're disabled, kick rocks. Two, it would require you to register to vote with one of two documents, a passport or a birth certificate. So for upwards of 69 million American women who either don't have access to those documents or have changed their name since they married their husband or wife, it would mean you can't vote because your current legal name does not match your birth certificate.
69 million women have changed their last name from their birth certificate and would be ineligible to vote. This bill also requires that you have to register to vote in person. Doesn't matter if you're elderly, disabled, doesn't matter, in person. And a driver's license will no longer do. You have to have a passport or your birth certificate.
Now, the progress of this bill is a little wonky. I've seen lots of different information that's all not necessarily incorrect, but maybe a little misleading unintentionally. This bill seems like it was just introduced because it's been reintroduced. This bill was actually introduced in the summer of 2024, where it did pass in the House. And then it was blocked in the Senate and it kind of fell off. It has been reintroduced and is under review for the House once again. So while it did pass in the House last year, it has to pass in the House again before it can even reach the Senate one more time. That is our silver lining. However, things are, I don't know if you've been watching the news, but things are worse than they were last year, especially in regards to women. So the likelihood of it passing in both the House and the Senate seems like it could be a better possibility this year than it was last year.
I think as well. I think this video has made me rethink the 19th Amendment, but let's keep it going.
So I guess they misunderstood. When we said we wanted male-only voting, we meant male, M-A-L-E.
This bill would not prevent any undocumented immigrants from voting because they already can't vote. It's already illegal. They don't have government-issued identification documents. They don't have a driver's license here. They can't vote. But it is voter suppression of people who are American citizens. Not only is it essentially repealing the 19th Amendment for a lot of women in this country without actually repealing the 19th Amendment, but people who come from low income and disadvantaged communities who don't have access to their birth certificate, don't have a passport, would also be barred from voting, even if they have a government-issued ID or driver's license.
Enter the SAVE Act. I drafted that bill in the spring alongside our good friends, Stephen Miller, our good friends, Hans von Spakovsky, Cleta Mitchell, other good friends of President Trump, and patriots across the country who've been fighting for election integrity for years.
Drafted by Texas Representative Chip Roy with the help of the people from the Heritage Foundation and people who tried to help overturn the 2020 election results. In case you forgot, the Heritage Foundation drafted Project 2025. The people who really don't want women to vote. And just as an added bonus, it keeps poor people out of being able to vote too. Especially since we know that communities of color are largely disenfranchised in this country. So people who are of color tend to come from those low income disadvantaged communities because that is how our system is set up. It is designed to keep them down and keep them poor. So wealthy people, largely white people, largely the male people are the ones that don't have to worry really about being affected by this. Remember when they kept saying, oh, you keep going after straight white men, rich white men. What more proof do you need for why we're picking on you? But don't worry, we'll get our voter base on board because we'll just blame it on every single immigrant that comes into this country because, you know, every single one of them is a violent criminal.
Mind-bending to me that in America, you could have gang members move into your building and take the place over and that nobody shows up. The police don't throw them out. The sheriff don't throw them out. How is this possible, Congressman?
This is what happens when you have an administration that is releasing people into the United States against current law. This is what happens when you have radical progressive Democrats in charge of the state in Colorado and in cities that create sanctuary cities. And then they try to ignore what's actually happening to real people. We have people dying. We have Texans dying. Lake and Riley in Georgia. We have Elizabeth Medina. We have in Maryland, you have Kayla Hamilton and Rachel Marin. I could go down the laundry list of Americans who've died, the 100,000 from fentanyl poisoning. My office issued a report yesterday entitled Border Invasion that you can find at roy.house.gov or on my social media, where we detail all of the damage. How about the 99 people on the terrorist watch list that were released?
How about the 1,500 violent rioters from January 6th that were released? How about them? Let's blame every single immigrant, and we'll get this to pass, but just the brown ones, like not like the white ones from Europe or anything like that. And then because of that fake problem that we created, because statistically immigrants are way less violent and crime-ridden than actual American citizens, then let's find a way to take away women's right to vote. It comes full, it makes sense if you don't think about it. One thing you can always be sure of, it is never about what it's about. It is just them trying to find loopholes for like they can't just repeal the 19th Amendment. So they're finding a way to restrict voting like they've done since the Jim Crow era so that they get what they want without technically repealing the amendment that allows you the right to vote. But they're going to practice voter suppression because they know how to do that really well, because unfortunately, they've had a lot of practice. And like most bad things in this country, its roots are founded in racism. They always started voter suppression because they wanted to prevent black people from voting once they were no longer enslaved. They couldn't just prevent them from vote. They couldn't just make a law that said black people can't vote. So they found another way to do it, to keep black people like, well, the law says you can vote. You just got to follow the rules like everybody else. But the rules are slanted against you. That's what they're doing now to women and poor people. They've had a lot of practice doing it. Anyway, just keep in mind, it did pass in the House once. It does have to pass the House again before it can even be reintroduced to the Senate. It is currently under review. So call your representatives. I know everyone is saying that all the time, but it does make a difference. The influx of calls, it does make a difference. It is making your voice heard. So call your representative. Let them know how you feel about the SAVE Act and let them know you would like them to do something about it. Don't let it pass through. Make your voice heard.